So, handles. There's a lot to be said about handles. And chances are, if you're watching or have watched my channel for a while, you know I enjoy thinning them down, enjoy tuning them up. Spent a lot of time working on them. So I've definitely got some thoughts on them. Whether they're right or not, I don't know. They're my thoughts though, so I figured I'd kind of share some with you. Uh, Finding old heads is, in my opinion, significantly easier than finding good old handles. That's just been my experience. I've had a lot better luck finding heads locally. I've had a lot or handles locally rather than heads locally. Definitely found some cool heads local too. But when you're buying X's online, the majority of the time, I would say, unless you're going to pay significantly more, you're going to buy a loose head. So that leaves you the situation where you need to then hang that head on something. If you want to use it, if you're just going to collect it, whatever, do whatever you want. It's your axe. But if you want to hang it and use it, you need a handle to do that. So your options are somewhat limited. But while they are limited, there are some good ones out there too. So, yeah, this right here is a vintage handle. It came on a little closer look. I did show this in another one of my previous videos, but if you haven't seen it, you can take a look now. So I've salvaged this handle off of a different head. It wasn't a Connecticut pattern; it was a Plum Dayton pattern, and it was very nice fit for this. Knocking over the heater. It was a very nice fit for this Plum Victory Connecticut pattern. So yeah, I was happy with how this project came out. But I was able to reuse this vintage handle, and it feels great. It's got a nice fawn's foot, very traditional. Not exactly sure how old this handle is, but it's definitely got some age to it. The plum head that came on it here, I believe it was a square label, so it usually designates that it's an older plum, but who knows when the handle was replaced on it, because I don't think this is an original plum handle. I think it was just a nicer aftermarket vintage one that probably got thrown on there at some point. So that's always a great option if you've got a head. Another really good option is house handles. If you're just looking to get a handle to throw a head on and get out in the woods and use, it's really hard to go wrong with a house handle. They're cheap, and I do say cheap at times, not always just budget friendly. Sometimes you get some lemons. So if you've got a place that sells house handles locally, I would highly recommend going and picking one out of the lineup. If you are buying them online, I heavily suggest picking the hand-selected option. When I've done that, I've gotten handles with really nice grain orientation and very little runout. Now, that doesn't mean the milling of the handles was always perfect. There's definitely some challenges there. I think a lot of times when they might mill them up, the wood might be a little bit green and not fully cured, or just the changes in humidity. I can't remember what state they ship out of. I think it's like Missouri or something like that. So maybe when they show up here in New York, their humidity's changed a little bit, so we get a little twisting and warping at times. But overall, I've been very happy with using house handles and tuning them up into something that I enjoy using on an axe. Without tuning them up, they're absolutely usable, absolutely serviceable. They're still a lot better than some of your standard hardware store handles that are like super chunky and thick. So It's a really good option, especially for the affordability factor. They're definitely priced at a point where when I buy them, because obviously I'm hanging a lot of heads, I kind of buy them in bulk. There isn't like a bulk pricing option, but I buy, if I'm looking for, this is a 28-inch curved single bit handle. I think the last time I bought them, I ordered like 8 of them, like 6 straight ones. So that way when they came, there were 2 or 3 that like the palm swell was like super wonky from the milling, or another one that like it completely twisted. Those can kind of just be set aside for either beater axes or whatever, firewood at the worst case scenario. But they were cheap enough that I still got some really good ones out of it that I was perfectly happy with it, kind of like an acceptable loss for how many you get. If you don't want to kind of go that route and take the effort and the time and kind of tuning these up, which is what I've done for this axe here. This is one of my favorites. It's a 3.2, so 3.5 pound plum Connecticut pattern. This is a house handle that I did shape up and tune up. Kind of like thinned it down. Following the same process I had in my how I shaped my axe handle series. Kind of that scroll end, very old school traditional style. I like that. I like that style end a lot. I don't think it just looks cool. I think it's really functional, especially if you want to reseat a head or you need to tighten it up a little bit. Maybe you hung it when you hung it. The humidity was real high, and now it's dried out a bit. Even just environmentally, the relative humidity is a lot lower now, and that's got just that tiniest little bit of wiggle to it. If you've used axes for any amount of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just that tiny little bit. It's not super loose yet. It can still be saved, so you take it and you wrap on that, that scroll end, and because it's supported wood, you're not damaging a traditional fawn's foot like this. That's the one real downside of that fawn's foot design is it's comfortable, it looks elegant, but it's not nearly as durable as a scroll end. So I'm a fan of the scroll end. You do you, but you can take that, drive it down with a hammer, and then just reseat your wedge just a little bit more, and you can tighten up a potentially loose hang without having to completely rehang it. Obviously, completely rehanging it is always an option, but if you can just tighten it up, why not? Alright, so that's the tuned up house handle option. One of the other options that's currently available, depending on their stock, but seems like lately they've been restocking a lot more frequently, which is really cool to see, because I really like this product. I haven't used it, but I've got hands on it so far. This is the Whiskey River. I think this is the 30C. So this handle feels extremely similar to how I tune up the house handles. It's got a little bit more curve to it, but not much. You can see here. I'll try to show you here. So those style ends, really similar, real similar curve here. Mine's, the tuned up house handle is a little bit more gradual, not as much swoop. And right in the belly there, seems to be about equal. And then one of the nice things, which is one of the downsides to the house handles, is with the Whiskey River, you get a really tall tongue, a really long tongue. That is very helpful for when you're trying to hang an axe that has a really tall eye. The downside to the house handles is you can see this is a house handle. Just look at the difference in the length of that tongue. You've got so for the Whiskey River, you've got really like 6 inches, 5 3/4, give or take, you know, almost 6 inches of depth on that tongue, right? That's a huge amount of working room for hanging an axe, especially if you've got like a taller axe, like a Connecticut pattern, or some of the Jerseys, or Tasmanian pattern. You can see you can hang that high and still have plenty of room on the shoulder and not have any issues with that. That is one of the huge advantages of the Whiskey River over a house handle. Can you do it with a house handle? Yeah, obviously. I've done it. Did it with this one. This is a house handle here. The downside to that is you do see where they had it chucked up in the. I'm assuming it's a copy lathe that they use, but you can see where they've got probably like the live center from the copy lathe. So, because you need every bit of that tongue to kind of make it fit where your shoulder is, you do have that kind of left over. It's not the prettiest, but I've got present on my Plum Connecticut pattern too. And if I took this completely down and trimmed it flush, that might go away, but I like hanging it proud, and the little bit of the copy lathe mark there doesn't bother me enough to trim it completely flush, so I left it. Yeah, you could get fancy and put some kind of like, you know, some brass shell casing in there or something that looks prettier if you're really trying to dress one up, but that acts as a user, so I'm leaving it just as it is. With the Whiskey River, you've got a lot more tongue to work with, so that's very helpful, especially if you're newer to hanging. If you're newer to hanging or hanging an axe, and you don't want to go through the effort and the time, because it takes a significant amount of time to tune a handle up like I do in my videos. I know I edit them down, but I mean, fully shaping it up from start to finish probably takes, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. And that's just the shaping. That's not completely hanging it. That's just working on the handle to get it how I want it. Yeah, you could rush through it and probably do it a little bit quicker, but it's a hobby for me. I enjoy taking my time with it. It's relaxing, so I usually take 4 or 5 hours tuning one up. But if you don't want to take that kind of time commitment, the Whiskey River, while it is a little bit thicker than how I tune mine up, if you look side to side, it is just a tiny bit thicker. Not much, but just a tiny bit. The Whiskey River is pretty much ready to go right out of the box. It feels good. Like I said, it's a little bit thicker, but it's not so thick that it feels like it would be super rigid to use. This handle I plan on using for a Rockaway pattern head that I have, kind of a special one. So I don't plan on thinning it down at all. I think it's perfectly good to use, just how it is. So plan on doing that. One of the nice things about having such a tall eye here, or tongue, not eye, having such a tall tongue here, is that say you do have so you want to hang a Dayton on it, right? Okay, yeah, you've got a lot of extra tongue. So if you don't want to, hang it all the way down on the shoulder here, but you'd prefer to have a longer handle, okay, hang it up here, and then when you're shaping your handle, or you can shape it, just take more of the shoulder off and blend this in, Mark a line as to where you want your shoulder to end, or where your shoulder to be, your new shoulder to be, and you can, essentially extend that, as far as you want it, as long as you've got enough tongue left to fit the eye. So it's a good way to get a little more length out of one of these if you don't need a super tall tongue. Now, some of you might have noticed the other handle that's up here. This here is a Killinger French curve. I picked it up a long time ago, probably 2-3 years, maybe longer. I can't remember exactly. When he was still selling them. I don't know if I'll ever actually use this one just because it's kind of a cool keepsake, but it is super thin. Like if you compare that to Whiskey River, you know, it's super thin. Palm swell on it is, you know, very generous. Nice big block there. Grain orientation on it is pretty good. I think this was I think it's a B grade one that I bought. I think that's all he had left in stock when I was doing it, but there's a little bit of run out here, but not much. There's definitely some continuous grain all the way to the front and the back. Only a little bit of run outs kind of here. The tongue on this one is absolutely massive. This is just super huge. You could fit whatever eye you need to with this. Downside to that is it takes a bit more shaping, whereas something that's, you know, like this, the house handle, that's much closer to fitting right out of the box. Most likely, unless you've got an odd-shaped eye, or you know, blacksmith made something rather. Then maybe you do need something that's so much more substantial. But yeah, it's a cool one. Unfortunately, he's not selling them anymore. So, like I said, I probably will never actually hang anything on this one. Just keep it as a keepsake. It's a really pretty handle. It's really elegant. Comfort-wise, I think it might just be a little bit too small for what I'd like to use, but it's really hard to tell without actually having a head on it and swinging it. But the Whiskey River series, the Heritage series, those are still available. I don't know about currently, but they come back in and out of stock, and I think they just added the 32C, so even just slightly a bit longer than this one. So that's a really good option. If you don't have a vintage handle available and you don't want to take the time to do, you know, thinning down a house handle, the one downside to the Whiskey Rivers they are a little bit more expensive, but if you factor in the time it takes to thin down a house handle to get it where you'd want to, where I like it. Only speaking anecdotally here, if I'm factoring the time it takes to actually shape up a handle here to get it to a really similar stage as to where this is right out of the box, you know, I'm making like, you figure you're doing 4 or 5 hours of work on this. How much you know, extra would you pay for 4 or 5 hours of your time back? You know, that's something for you to figure out if you're actually trying to do this as far as a business standpoint, or if you don't just enjoy working the wood and working the handles. I'll definitely probably pick up more of these in the future. I like them. I like the shape of them. They're comfortable. Seem like they're very well made. So, but I'll probably pick up more of these in the future, and I'll absolutely continue to keep thinning down house handles, just because I enjoy the process, I enjoy the shaping, I enjoy the creative aspect of it, I enjoy fine-tuning it for, you know, each axe. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts. What options out of here you kind of like the best? Which ones you'd pick? What are your go-tos? So yeah, thanks for watching and chatting about handles. Or halves. If you want to call them halves, that's fine too. That's the more fancier term. I just call them handles, but... Alright. Thanks for watching, everyone.